Hello everyone, so in this Java tutorial, I wanted to go over how to create your own functions. So I'm sure you remember in previous tutorials, we've used many other functions like the parse float function, like the and many others like the next line function from scanner, like the trim. There's so many, and we even have this main function right here. So I'm going to go over how to create your own new functions. So whenever we create functions, we're going to be creating what's called static functions. I'm going to discuss how to create non-static functions whenever we go over object-oriented programming in the future, but for now, we're going to be going over static functions, and we're also not going to be using this public right here. We'll learn that in the future. For now, I want you to create a function, and we're going to be creating only static functions. So we're going to make static, and if you remember, this next word in our function is the return type of our function. So we could return a double, or we could return nothing. We're going to try doing this void, creating a function that will not return anything. And we're going to call it print, and we're going to make it take in no parameters. And all this function is going to do is print out hello everyone, just like that. Now we can call our print function just like this, and what this is going to do is whenever we are calling this function, we type in the name, parentheses, and colon. We've done this before, and that is going to call our print function. Notice if we don't have the static word here, this is not going to work. We need to have the static word here. If not, you're going to see this message right here, which, hello, it went away. Come on. There we go. Okay, it says cannot make static reference to the non-static method print. Again, we will discuss what this means, but if you ever see this error, it's because you're trying to use something that's not static inside of something that's static, and we'll discuss how we can get around that, what we can do, but for now, we're only going to be creating static functions until we've learned about object-oriented programming. So, here's our static function, print. We're going to try running it. Let's see what it does. It prints hello everyone. Now we can make our function take in, say, a number, say a double. I'm sorry, take in, we're going to make it return a double. And we're going to say, we're going to say that, and we're going to return, how about 0.5. Now what we can do is say double number equals that, and we can even print out this number if we wanted to. Notice something that's happening here. There's this right here is kind of an unexplicit call to println. Someone calling this, let's say we actually create it called get number. Someone calling this might not realize that they're going to print something out on the screen unless they actually looked at the number. So this is something that can happen in your functions. It's commonly called a side effect. It's just something else that happens, and having these side effects can get a little bit confusing with functions. Anyway, so right here, we have our double number and it's equal to get number. We could of course remove this and that would take away any side effects, but then we might as well also just put that. So those are some of the ways we can use functions. Last thing I want to show you with functions are what are in here, the arguments or the parameters. So sometimes people get confused between the difference between arguments and parameters. So whenever you are feeding something into a function, um, those are the arguments, and then the parameters are what are on the function itself. So say, I'm going to first show you how to create arguments. So let's say we want to create an adder function, and this is going to be a pretty useless function, but we're still going to create it. So public int adder, and we want to take in an int. So the way you do that is by typing an int, and we're going to type in the name of our argument. So we want to take an argument of type int, and the name is going to be number 1, or number. And then we're also going to want to take in another argument called number 2. We'll call this one number 1. And we're going to return number 1 plus number 2. This is an extremely useless function, but we're still going to just try it. So now we can print out adder 1 and 2. And just like that, we can create a function that'll take in arguments and spit them out and give us our answer. So this is giving us an int as it, and then it's printing out that int. So this is one of the ways we can use functions. A more helpful example to this would be something like, say, the 2 degrees function. You might remember this whenever we did math.2degrees, and that one took in a double, and it took out a double, it output a double, and it did that. And all it did was it took our number and it multiplied it by some number. So let me go look up that constant right now. So how to convert radians to degrees, and it says all you have to do is do what's it called? You multiply it by, I believe it's pi over 180. Let me think. So it would be math dot pi over 180. It might be 180 over pi. I believe it's actually that. And then we're going to make it say radians. So now what we can do is say, and this is also going to be right there. So now our argument is named radians. So we're going to say 2 degrees. And notice our argument name right here comes up right there. So that is where this thing is pulling up those argument names from. So let's say we have math.pi over 2 radians, and let's see how many degrees that is. So that's going to be 90 degrees, just like that. So we could also say we have pi radians, and that's going to be 180 degrees. So just like that, this is how that 2 degrees function works. So this is basically how you can use functions. Some of those use cases you can use functions with. Functions are an essential thing to programming, and it is so helpful to use functions. You can use them in so many different ways, and be careful when you use functions. I hope this tutorial was helpful. And in the next tutorial, we're going to be going over how we can use these functions to make our program much more simple.